Hey guys, welcome back to a second video of today, which is something that I have been doing more often after I upload the market update. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about two very fiery topics that have been in the news recently. The first is a study that showed, and I quote, "Non-English speaking carriers are more dangerous than drug or speeding violators." And second is a claim that there is something even more important when it comes to safety than just enforcing ELP or English language proficiency on the road. Both articles are by Overdrive, so let's go ahead and go through them. Ready? Let's go. All right, first the study. And I know that this is a topic that gets a lot of people going, and the saying, "don't kill the messenger," doesn't really work. So it is what it is. Here's the message. So Overdrive has a parent company that's called Fusibles MC Advantage, which is basically doing a lot of data crunching. And what they have found is that motor carriers who hire folks who are not proficient in the English language are more likely to end up in a crash. So how did they do this study? Well, they looked at FMCSA data from June 2023 to June 2024 to identify carriers with violations in either English language proficiency, drug and alcohol, or speeding violations. Now, I do understand that ELP was not yet enforced in terms of out-of-service orders, but still people did get violations here and there. And then once they identified those carriers, they analyzed crash data for those carriers over the next year. This is what they found. So first right here is a chart. This is a chart showing fleets that have between 1 and 5 trucks. So the orange is ELP violations, then green is drug and alcohol violations, and finally blue is the speeding violations. And of course, the dark blue is the national average. And what you can see is that the orange bar is higher than the rest, which means, as Overdrive says, this places ELP as a strong predictor of crash incidents. So what about for larger fleets? Well, here's another chart by Overdrive, which shows fleets between 20 and 50 trucks on the left and 51 to 500 units on the right. And the colors are the same. Orange is ELP, dark blue is national average, green is drug and alcohol violations, and blue is speeding violations. And the pattern stays the same. It's very interesting to see that ELP are more closely correlated with crashes than even drug and alcohol violations, which are on second place. So how is this possible? How is it that a language barrier is showing to be more dangerous than even driving under the influence? Well, there are a few reasons. The first one that comes to mind is if you drive under the influence and you get caught, your CDL automatically gets downgraded and you're not allowed to operate a commercial motor vehicle until you complete the return to duty process, which effectively removes that person from the road. With ELP, remember, enforcement didn't really start until June 25th of 2025. To top it off, some truck enforcement officials said that they are too afraid to inspect trucks where the driver is not proficient in the English language. So Connecticut State Police Sergeant, his name is Dick Murchison, he actually said that the lack of English language proficiency will hold back equal enforcement. And I quote him here directly. "Sometimes you can't do a full inspection because they're not understanding, and it's too dangerous for us to get under the truck." Now, personally, I'm not a fan of inspections, and any time one of my trucks is in the middle of a roadside inspection, it gives me heart palpitations. But I do have to say that the threat of an inspection or an audit definitely keeps you in line. But if you're not getting full inspections, well, yeah, you know where I'm going. But now let's go on to the second claim, stating that there's something much more influential than just enforcing English language proficiency while on the road. Zach Cahalan, he is the executive director of the Truck Safety Coalition, or TSC, said that he has seen firsthand the safety impacts of people who have a language barrier or do not fully understand the rules of the road. Again, as we have already discussed, Overdrive's parent company found that motor carriers with ELP violations tend to crash at nearly double the national average. But as Overdrive itself states, and I quote, "So far, the data merely implies a correlation at the carrier level and is not yet strong enough to outright prove direct causation at any individual driver level." And this is why Cahalan stands by his argument that at the end of the day, the ability to speak English is not quite a determining factor of whether you are a good operator of a commercial motor vehicle. He believes that it all boils down to training, and while he strongly supports ELP being added to out-of-service criteria, he states that there are plenty of folks without that language barrier who drive dangerously too. Now, this is where I think Cahalan got it just right. He said, if we're talking about safety, it's not enough to distinguish between good CDL drivers and bad CDL drivers after they have already gotten a CDL. That is a little too late. Instead, and I quote, "The time to answer that question is before a CDL was ever issued." Obviously, he's talking about those CDL mills that prioritize quantity over quality. Now, there are several things that Cahalan wants to see. Number one, he believes that the CDL skills test should be taken in your state of domicile, because what he said is happening more and more often is forum shopping, where people are looking for the easiest or the most lenient CDL schools in the US, and they just go and take it in whatever state that school is in. Number two, he believes that there should be a minimum behind the wheel hours requirement for CDL applicants. Third, and I quote, Cahalan would also like to see law enforcement investigate CDL schools that graduate drivers who display dangerous ignorance or disregard for safety. And number four, this is not something Cahalan said, but this is rather something that came from a comment on Overdrive's recent survey. And that comment stated, any CDL school should ensure that drivers can meet all regulations. It should start there. So now that we have talked about these articles and the opinions of the folks quoted, what do you think? First of all, I want to hear, do you think ELP or lack of English language proficiency correlates with more crashes, or is it something that is a direct cause of more crashes? This is something I'm super curious to hear your opinions on. Number two, do you think the fact that ELP is being enforced on the road, right, during roadside inspections, do you think that's enough if we're talking about safety? Or will safety only come from overhauling the way CDL schools operate and train future CDL holders? As always, I'm going to stand aside and let you guys give your opinions instead of bombarding you with mine. Curious to hear your thoughts and wishing you a fantastic rest of your Friday. See you in the next video.